The top stories: Commander-in-Chief loads nation's military capacity. And leaders discuss food security in Dakar as Africa faces its worst hunger crisis. Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Stay with us. Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Armed Forces expressed confidence that the nation has built sufficient capacity to repulse any military aggression against it. Writing on his social media page after his visit to a military drill at the Awash Arba Military Center, the Commander-in-Chief Abiy Ahmed pointed out that the integrated combat drill he saw at the center is testimony to the new heights reached by the nation. Ahmed further underscored that in the combat drill, the Air Force, heavy weapons, special forces and infantry have been combined and manifested a variety of ways to avoid threats within a short time. He stressed that there are forces bent on taking Ethiopia's eyes off its grand dreams, adding the task needing the utmost attention of military officers is that of building a force that avoids war. Representatives of Ethiopian civil society organizations that embarked on a working visit to Mekelle, Tigray region, have pledged to do their utmost efforts in ensuring that urgent humanitarian needs are addressed. According to Ethiopian Civil Society Organizations Council, the working visit was organized by the Ethiopian Civil Society Organizations Council in collaboration with the Alliance of Civil Society Organizations of Tigray. The council added that in a follow-up meeting to the visit to Mekelle on Friday, January 27, 2023, CSOs deliberated on their observation on the ground as well as the way forward in relation to providing humanitarian, psychological and socio-economic support in the region. The civil society organizations have expressed their readiness to make a similar visit to conflict-affected areas of the country and to coordinate the necessary support in the effort to rebuild and rehabilitate. Members of the Ethiopian diaspora who headed to Ethiopia's mega dam on the Blue Nile, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD, said their visit inspired them to extend further support to the flagship project. This week, various diaspora organizations have been given national recognition and awards for their universal contribution to their country. Jerusalem Betzaha brings us the details.
This week, on Thursday, Ethiopia has recognized its active citizens and diaspora organizations who have been instrumental in defending the interests of Ethiopia in the past 2 years, in which the country has been facing various challenges. Meanwhile, these Ethiopian diaspora members yesterday visited the construction of the dam, which is a flagship project of Ethiopians. Talking to Ethiopian news agency, members of the diaspora said that the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is built with Ethiopians' own resource and capacity, and it's a project that will take Ethiopia to a beacon of prosperity and is a source of pride for generations to come.
There are many sacrifices were paid for this dam. Particularly, we are really impressed by the dam workers who are working hard in difficult weather conditions. Therefore, the perseverance of the workers has moved us to further intensify our support to the dam.
የኑሮ ሁኔታ የጄኔሬሽንን የሚቀይር ፕሮጀክቶች ላይ ምንም ይሁን ምንም
We Ethiopians and Ethiopian origin from all over the world too, we have to stand in unison and strengthen our support for the construction of the dam without any differences.
Ethiopian Diaspora Service Director General Mohamed Idris said that members of the diaspora who visited the dam have seen the fruits of the support they have been providing to GERD thus far. This visit will help the diaspora organizations to mobilize more resources and intensify their support, Mohamed said.
The diaspora community has been involved in defending the country at the international arena and supporting the victim during war. Now efforts are diligently underway to enable them support development projects in coordinated manner.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has brought together millions of Ethiopians, irrespective of ethnicity, religion, political persuasion, or background, including those in the diaspora from all corners of the globe.
A foreign policy analyst pointed out that although colonial history has its share in the current political and economic situation of Africa, the failure of Africans to fulfill their responsibilities has been no less responsible. The analyst Rabuma Dejene further underlined that Africa should move away from being a competitive playground of Western powers and protect its own interests as a continent. Johannes Fentaun has the following account.
It is believed that the colonial pressure exerted by the US and European countries has a large share in the shape of Africa as a continent and its political, economic and other international relations. In an interview with the TV's Diplomatic Insight program, foreign policy analyst Rabuma Dejene says that the history of the colonial era plays a significant role in Africa's current appearance in the global landscape.
The European powers exploited Africa's resources, Africa's population to their own development and to their own advancement. So the transatlantic slave trade massively impacted Africa's economy, African society, and African state structure.
Although colonialism has played a major role in Africa's current situation, the analyst says that Africans have not played their part enough to make their continent develop.
Africans should take their own responsibility, at the same time understand the lingering legacies of colonialism, the lingering legacies of transatlantic slave trade. There are some lingering legacies of colonialism, and this generation of African society, African people, have the responsibility to change this dynamics, this balance of power with international powers, with international engagement. So the understanding of African society, the understanding of African history, and Africa's relations with global powers, including Europe and America, is very critical to understand how Africa has become a marginal player in the global geopolitical environment.
Remembering that Africa, especially East Africa, has become a competition playground for the world's greatest power countries, Dejene emphasized that Africa should not be a playground for political, economic and arms competition between the superpowers of the globe, and for this, the continent should work together instead of individually.
The West is now pursuing a strategy of great power competition with China, with Russia, and they are understanding the age as an age of great power competition. And Africa plays an important role in this, in their strategy, in their strategic compass, in their strategic understanding of the world. But we need to be critical as Africans, because Africa shouldn't be a geopolitical battleground. As Africans, we need to articulate our African interests, our collective African interests, and try to deal and try to manage this geopolitical competition rather than becoming a geopolitical battleground, a geopolitical chessboard for global powers.
The analyst also shared his opinion that Ethiopia should work on domestic stability and peace so that it can continue to maintain its geopolitical dominance and desirability in the East African region.
The West and other partners increase their interest, and Ethiopia becomes a critical player in the region if we put our house in order and if our foreign policy begins at home. What does that mean? Over the last 2 years, Ethiopia faced a major internal challenge. There has been violence, war, conflict. And so now this time should be about stability, it should be about prosperity, it should be about bringing more development rather than engaging in these domestic frictions, domestic conflicts that basically endanger our strategic significance. So any strategic outlook, any foreign policy outlook should begin at home.
Stating that the war of the past 2 years has affected Ethiopia greatly, Dejene said that everyone should work together for peace, development and prosperity.
Welcome to the land of origins. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is pleased to serve all your traveler banking needs. If you have money from any of these 16 countries, you can convert it to local currency by visiting our nearest branch. Alternatively, our secure Forex ATMs accept cash exchange, or if you prefer using your cards, we've partnered with Visa, MasterCard, and UnionPay so that you can withdraw cash from our local ATMs or make cashless transactions at thousands of local POS partners securely and with confidence. We are linked with more than 700 global banks through our direct SWIFT address, CBE Teta. We also work with 16 international money transfer agents, out of which Tune and World Remit enable you to make direct deposits into our savings and current accounts or our popular CBE Burr mobile wallet. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the bank you can always rely on.
A wedding is almost always a huge affair, but when it comes to Ethiopian weddings, the magnitude of importance increases exponentially. Ethiopian wedding tradition and culture is one of the richest in the African continent and has mostly remained unblemished over the years. As such, the Ethiopian wedding ceremony is a beautiful sight to see. Ethiopian weddings are a vibrant affair thanks to the rich Ethiopia wedding traditions. Even though some couples are choosing to have modern weddings, most still incorporate traditional customs in their Ethiopian wedding ceremonies. Tulosh is a formal procedure which is undertaken 2 days before the main wedding. The ceremony takes place in the bride's family home and is an opportunity for the groom and his family to share the bride with gifts.
And that's it. And that's it. You turn. No, that's it. That's how you got shot. And this is what.
Upon arrival of the groom and his entourage to the bride's home, they find everyone, including the bride, ready and waiting. Those inside the bride's house go outside singing a traditional song that says they will not let anyone in the house. The official engagement and eating of the cake follows next. Oddly enough, the real engagement takes place on the actual day of the Ethiopian wedding.
Welcome back. Deraro, the Gedio community's new year, was celebrated with much pomp and fanfare at the Dilla Multipurpose Stadium in Southern Nations, Nationalities and Peoples Regional State. According to our staff reporter, Buruk Tesfaye, the Deraro celebrations also coincide with the end of the harvesting season. During the festivities, the Gedio community observed the Huluka, which represents a transition to a better and brighter future. The Gedio community also used the celebrations to make preparations for the coming farming season. This year's Deraro is being celebrated in the presence of Gedio community, Chief of the Southern State, Rustu Yirdao, and religious figures as well as officials from the federal and regional tourism bureaus. As Ethiopia's diplomacy stretches its wings to the breadth and width of the world, Ethiopia's ambassador to the Nordic countries reaffirmed the commitment of Nordic states to reinvigorate economic and development cooperation with Ethiopia. Sitting down with the Ethiopian news agency and reflecting on the matter, the ambassador underlined that Nordic countries have kept close ties with Ethiopia, particularly in the fields of development projects. Haptamu Ashagri brings us the full account. Take a look.
Ethiopia has been scaling up development cooperation with Nordic countries from time to time. The Nordic countries have supported Ethiopia in the agriculture, forest and education sector, strengthening democracy, development and human rights over and above aiding in development projects. Ethiopia's ties with countries such as Sweden, Finland, Denmark and Switzerland has reached new and exponential heights. Following the peace agreement with the TPLF in early development last year, the Nordic countries have shown desire to prop up cooperation in more ways than one.
ሰላም ስምምነቱ ከተፈረመ ወዲህ ያንን የሰላም ስምምነቱን ይዘት በቀጣይ እንዴት
After the historic peace accord between Addis Ababa and TPLF, Ethiopia has taken a decisive step in showing these countries the hard fact on the ground and implementation of the peace agreement in war-torn areas. Most Nordic countries are members of the EU and as such remain active in all decisions made by this bloc. Recently, efforts are well underway to capitalize cooperation with Nordic countries.
Moreover, these countries are keen on continuing and strengthening their economic and development cooperation to the country. The ambassador noted the countries appreciated the government's commitment to solving the problem in the northern Ethiopia through peaceful dialogue.
Recently, the Nordic countries have made it clear that the pacified situation in Ethiopia is agreeable to them. All embassies of the Nordic countries are following and reporting recent developments in Ethiopia. Based on the feedback we've been receiving, they have developed a positive outlook regarding Ethiopia. In addition, they have expressed ample interest to give us a hand in the reconstruction and restoration projects in northern Ethiopia. We are also working closely to realize this endeavor.
ለመሳተፍ ያላቸውን ፍላጎት እያሳዩን ያሉትና እኛም እንደ ኤምባሲ
The peace dividend, he says, has come in the form of more support from the EU and the Nordic group. Nordic countries, including Norway, are traditionally known for providing support to education, environmental protection, sustainable development affairs, and other development activities in Ethiopia.
An award-winning journalist hailed Ethiopia's peace-building efforts. The American journalist said the Eastern African nation is moving in the right direction in terms of building peace in the country and the Horn of Africa. The award-winning American journalist, who is also fellow with the Center of Media and Peace Initiative, further underlined that the peace accord Ethiopia recently signed in Pretoria, South Africa, with the TPLF is a manifestation of its commitment. We have the following details on that story. Take a look.
Since Ethiopia ended a 2-year conflict after signing a cessation of hostilities agreement in early November 2022, the accord has been regarded as a breakthrough for African solutions to Earth's problems. The American journalist observed that life has returned to normal and the war-torn districts as a result of the Ethiopian government's quick implementation of the agreement and restoration of basic services. The return of essential services like air travel is a good sign for Ethiopia's progress toward peace, as per him.
I think that the resumption of flights to these areas is a positive sign. Any way you want to look at it, I think that it suggests that we are moving in the right direction in terms of building peace in Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa. It shows that there will be a greater free movement of people within Ethiopia, which is a return to the situation for the war. So these are very welcome developments. It means, and not just people, right? It will mean people, goods, ideas will flow more freely across Ethiopia. And it's a very welcome development.
Hamoud made it clear that the resumed flights indicate that there will be more freedom of movement within Ethiopia, which is a return to the pre-war state, and that the Horn of Africa nation also has dependable international allies and partners in this respect.
In terms of the peace process, tentatively, it seems that things are moving in the right direction, which is great. You know, I used to go to Ethiopia every year before the civil war. And I think that Ethiopia should remember it's not alone, and that there are stakeholders both in the Horn of Africa and in the world that are keen to see Ethiopia strong, successful, and succeeding, and a peaceful country above all. And I think that we have seen that how quickly the international community has worked on some of these issues in the past. And I think that Ethiopia should work with international partners, continue down the timetables laid out in the peace agreements. And, look, all we can do is hope for the best and continue down that path. And I think the signs are positive. Everyone must be bold here, the government, all stakeholders, the international community, so we can all build towards the goal of peaceful, stable, prosperous Ethiopia in the 21st century.
The renowned journalist emphasized the importance of restoring Ethiopia's community's shared heritage, the foundation for political stability. Despite a 2-year war in northern Ethiopia and a COVID-19 pandemic, Ethiopian Airlines has managed to maintain a healthy net profit in the region.
The Ethiopian Water Technology Institute received 100 million birr worth of water machinery from Japan, the Ministry of Water and Energy disclosed. State Minister for Water and Sanitation Sector, Asfaw Gamo, in his remarks at the handing over ceremony, stated that the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, has been providing various supports in building the capacity of Ethiopia's water sector for the past 25 years. Katsuki Morihara, the chief representative of the JICA Ethiopia office for SPART, said that Japan has been providing extensive support to Ethiopia in agriculture, private sector development, water and sanitation, water infrastructure, education, and in the health sectors. In business, the priority given to the private sector as the cornerstone of the country's future would create huge opportunities for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. The Eastern and Southern African Trade and Development Bank, TDB senior advisor, said. The advisor, Reginald Mock, said Ethiopia has amazing potential for economic growth. According to him, there is no other country in Africa that has reduced the poverty rates in the manner that Ethiopia has managed to do so since 2004. Therefore, people refer to the period from 2004 to 2018 as Ethiopian economic miracle, which has been cited in the Financial Times and other business publications across the world, he elaborated.
Welcome to the land of origins. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is pleased to serve all your traveler banking needs. If you have money from any of these 16 countries, you can convert it to local currency by visiting our nearest branch. Alternatively, our secure Forex ATMs accept cash exchange, or if you prefer using your cards, we've partnered with Visa, MasterCard, and UnionPay so that you can withdraw cash from our local ATMs or make cashless transactions at thousands of local POS partners securely and with confidence. We are linked with more than 700 global banks through our direct SWIFT address, CBE Teta. We also work with 16 international money transfer agents, out of which Tune and World Remit enable you to make direct deposits into our savings and current accounts or our popular CBE Birr mobile wallet. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the bank you can always rely on.
finally, from across the continent, as African leaders gathered at the Dakar summit to discuss food security, Senegalese farmers are asking for help and support as Africa faces its worst food crisis ever. The Russia-Ukraine war has only added fuel to the fire. African leaders were meeting this week to discuss such threats to food security. Kasahun Chani takes it from here.
The cold, misty Sivton satellite fields of western Senegal, Morekabe and members of his community are hard at work harvesting eggplants. Smallholder farmers like him are responsible for an estimated 80% of food production in sub-Saharan Africa. But despite the crucial role they play, Cabo says smallholders are struggling amid lack of finance and fertilizer.
Access to finance is not easy at all, he says. Demand exceeds supply and they lend to those that they trust the most.
The ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia has disrupted supply to fertilizer producers and a continent. Stopgap measures have not been enough to curb high prices, which smallholder farmers can't afford. 30 miles from Carbase's 5-acre plot, African leaders were meeting this week to discuss such threats to food security. According to the United Nations, 1 in 5 Africans are facing hunger and worry the continent's worst ever food crisis. At the summit, Senegal's president had this to say.
Africa needs to learn to feed itself and to contribute to providing food to the world. We have the potential. We have 1.4 billion people living on more than 30 million square kilometers, with over 60% of the world's non-exploited arable land.
Carbe is also urging leaders to build infrastructure, including roads and storage facilities. Without cold storage, for example, he says they are obliged to sell their produce immediately so it doesn't perish even at times when the market is saturated. The summit, President Sall said building storage and processing units as well as improving access to markets were key measures that countries aim to put in place. By doing so, he said food production can be boosted, reducing a continent's reliance on imports.
You're watching Addis News Hour. Here's a reminder of the stories making headlines. Commander-in-Chief loads nation's military capacity. And leaders discuss food security in Dakar as Africa faces its worst hunger crisis. That's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for watching. Have a good night and do take care.